Almost as if it was the calm before the storm. Version. Subscribe! Today, I come to you guys with a potential video that might make it seem like a goddamn Kurobot. Because we are actually about to pull up some interesting content that might remove my title as the rank 1 Hoyo Shield. So what the hell could I be talking about, right? What the hell could I be talking about? I ain't gonna beat around the bushes. I'm specifically referring to this thing right here. 3 days ago, I posted up this community post asking you guys if honkaistarrail has a HP inflation problem. More than 45,000 votes later, with 1.2 thousand upvotes and 840 comments, overwhelming majority of you guys said yes at a 91% favorite. So the reason why I wanted to ask this from my community is because, I have started to, start reading my YouTube comments a little bit more. And I noticed this particular YouTube comment, bro was cooking, alright? This game is so trash. You only need E2S1 Kafka, E1S1 Black Swan, 5-star Signature Icon for 4-star, E2S1 Deal, E2 Sparkle, 5 DDDs to 7 cycle that shit. So this was specifically referring to, when we would, we always like to, do this kind of like fun little content challenges for Memory of Chaos, where I go into a stage completely blind and we just use some of random ass teams that's not meta, no Rame, no Bubbin, no Facial, no Aircrown. We just do some this random ass teams for fun, right? So imagine a player without Break Team and Facial with E0 Air0 units, or just E0 Blade here. If you don't have items with Signature Icons or E6 supports, your old characters are dead and useless. Imagine putting for characters in this dog shit game. Genshin could never, because you can still beat everything with just 4 stars and the game's still making money. Where HSR devs are scared to give variety to the players, instead they make a board fest with 2 to 3 relevant teams where everything else is just an instant ass. HSR doesn't deserve any money. Greedy, trash developer team. Genshin does it really good. Hope that Xenozone 0 will not go with the HSR way. Alright, this sparked a very, very interesting discussion on Twitter, on my community post, right? Bro is cooking, bro is chilling, and it sparked a very, very, holy break. If you guys want to see this post, I'm not gonna read the comments from this post, because if I read the comments, it's gonna take us, this video is gonna be 1 hour long, right? So if you guys want to find out about this post, feel free to check out the community tab on this post right here and read the over 800 comments discussing if honkaistarrail has a HP inflation problem. Today, we are gonna be essentially, I'm not gonna be debunking or not whether this is true or not true. Okay, but to be fair, you technically can still clear endgame content with only 4 stars. I believe we have seen a couple of videos out there right now that you can still do a 3-star clear with only 4. But I'm not here to debunk or bunk this. Today, the purpose of the video is to first look at Firefly in the eyes and say, you're a fucking gold digger, go fuck it. Second purpose of today's video is gonna be this. Ladies and gentlemen, with the help of my community, we have managed to pull up a very interesting spreadsheet where we compiled every single enemy HP from version 1 all the way up to version 2.7. So today's content will be nothing about subjective opinions, your feelings, my feelings, Kurobots, Hoyoverse, wah. Today will only be a matter of objective truth from patch 1.0 all the way to patch 2.7. Whether or not you believe there is gonna be an inflation problem, I'll leave it down to you guys in the comments to kind of duke it out in the war zone, right? I am just gonna be here to present you guys with objective truths and objective facts, starting with this right here. Let me zoom this a little bit. So here is what we managed to compile. You guys, if you guys see, oh my god, numbers, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. I'll just break this down for you guys, right? The first thing that we want to take note is that there is something called the single target HP and the AOE target HP. So what this essentially means is that single target HP is the effective HP your DPS has to deal if they are only targeting one enemy at a time. Whereas AoE HP is if your DPS has to deal with only the highest enemy HP, and the rest of them is via splash damage, namely from your DOT, your AoE DOT, your destruction, your erudition, etc, etc, right? So that is the difference between single target and AoE. So let's go back to memory lane. Version 1.0. Our first ever Memory of Chaos. This was with the buff, which buffed if you are a hunt unit or erudition unit, you get an extra turn at the start of every single turn, right? This was also, I believe, one of the first 3-star clears involving Yanqing, because the enemy was the flame out of space, and bro was weak to ice. So Yanqing had a considerable clear back then in the very, very first Memory of Chaos that we've ever gotten in Honkaistarrail. Average HP back then was 1.8 million with an AoE HP of 1.3 million, right? So there's going to be no percentage change because this is going to be our benchmark, right? So this is going to be this thing here. Let me just zoom this a little bit more. Oh, blaze out of space, right? My blaze out of space, right? So this is going to be there. Oh my god, do you guys remember we had 3 waves? Holy memory share, we had 3 waves. Not even 3 waves. So the final wave, this is going to be right here. We were up against Blaze Out of Space with Coca-Cola. That is the combined total HP of everything, right? So you can see back then, this target had 200,000 HP and Coca-Cola had 380,000 HP, alright? Which essentially means that your Scylla, nowadays, it will probably just one-shot this by the bitch. 200, let's just call it a 220k even number, right? So that will be our benchmark from 1.0 going forward. Our very next update at version 1.1, Calderion Tribulation, it actually decreased. The difficulty actually decreased by 12% in single target and 17% for AoE target. Went from 1.8 million to 1.6 million, and this AoE went from 1.3 to 1.1. So this is going to be the stage right here in version 1.1. It was basically the Olumetron with Kafka, right? Olumetron. I believe this was also Luocha's banner, because Luocha, it was a very, very nice sustain to showcase how Cleanse was going to work, especially if you run him against Kafka, right? Because Kafka, back then, she did have the mind control. So if you do have Luocha, it's going to make your life a lot more comfortable compared to fucking, what? Bailu, the part, which nobody had cleansed. The only unit that had cleansed back then was Natasha. We didn't even have links. So Luocha, this was basically a banner to sell Luocha. So I do believe that the decrease in HP was also kind of taking into consideration that maybe players who are pulling for sustain, they don't really want to make it so difficult to the point where you're going to die. So they actually made this easier moving forward from version 1.0 to version 1.1. Keep in mind, there's going to be a V1 here. It is also because back then in the days, Memory of Chaos rotations were also technically faster. Before we had the 6 weeks of Memory of Chaos, there was also, I believe, you could fit in 2 MOC in one patch. Sometimes, right? So that's why there's like a V1 and V2. But essentially, TLDR V1 actually went easier, right? And then came version 1.2. This went up by roughly 15.89% for a single target and 3.99% for AoE, which means that your AoE effective HP, frankly speaking, didn't really change too much. And even for a single target, after factoring in the nerf, it is still relatively okay, right? So 1.2 is going to be this enemy right here. It is going to be up against the double decaying shadow with Kafka on the second side as well. If you guys don't remember 1.2, this was the Blade and Kafka banner, right? Both of them being not really single target, but if you guys remember way back in the days, our first ever Memory of Chaos 0 cycle was done on my channel using my E0S1 Kafka. We took 4 hours to try to kill this bada bitch. Those were some good times, chat. Back when we had sub 1,000 viewers, back when we tried this shit for 4 hours, I don't know how the hell I managed to get, like, I think it was like 600 or 700 people watching me try to get a 0 cycle with an E0S1 Kafka. And then we didn't even have fucking DOT. We were running Kafka, Pella, Qingyun, and Asta, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, cause bro was weak to fire and lightning, so good times, right? Good times. So this was the first ever 0 cycle that I've done on my channel. So really taking back us to memory lane. And yeah, I think generally speaking, it was not too shabby considering the fact that at this point, I don't think players were using Scylla that much. So to be fair, you could still use her because Silver Wolf already released in version 1.1. So you could just implant Silver Wolf. So you could technically still run Scylla here, but I think if you put for Blade or Kafka, AoE damage is gonna be a lot more favorable compared to single target. So that's gonna be the version 1.2. And now going into version 1.3. Chat, do you remember what was version 1.3? It was the introduction of the strongest E2 in the entire world. The introduction of Fu Xuan and E0 Imbibitor Lunae. The strongest sustain we've ever seen and the strongest hypercarry we've ever seen. Right before Jingliu. Right? So version 1.3, the changes was gonna be as follows. Alright, we went from basically a nerfed target for singles. Right? So this actually nerfed from 1.9 million to 1.8 million. And then this AoE change went up a little bit, roughly by 6%. And frankly speaking, I believe it was also accounting for the fact that single target was also just getting a little bit shafted, especially since they were releasing Dale, which was an extremely strong DPS by its own rights. So to kind of balance it out, they made it such that single targets had a little bit more of a leeway compared to AoE targets, especially following Blade, following Kafka, and now Imbibitor Lunae. There wasn't a lot of single target units released ever since Scylla came out, right? So went up by a little bit, also going down by a little bit here. At this point, I kind of want to just remind you guys as well, this graph, it is not taking into consideration the Memory of Chaos buffs, which should be also an extremely important factor to consider, because for example, the E2 Dale, or rather the Dale stage, you had this Trotter that received increased basic attack damage, and if the Trotter dies, you get some additional damage, right? So Memory of Chaos buff, the Turbulent buffs, it was also a very important aspect to determine if the Memory of Chaos was quote-unquote getting easier or more difficult for players. And generally speaking, the Memory of Chaos Turbulent buffs, so far they were always used to sell the rate up banner unit. So for Kafka, it was like the fucking guilty buff. For E2 Dale, okay, for Dale, it was like the basic attack buff. For Jingyue and Scylla, they had the erudition / hunt buff. So most of the time, it was always going to be tied to upselling a character, right? So just something that you guys need to know, I did not take this into consideration. We are only going to consider their raw HP, right? So that is going to be that for version 1.3. Version 1.4, the first ever quote-unquote double ice week, and our first ever ice 5-star, Jingliu. Version 1.4 saw the release of Jingliu, right? And with version 1.4 also came about a first time ever, a 20%, in fact 27% increase in overall total HP, from 6% to 27.93% AoE, and also going up considerably for our single target change from -5 all the way up to a 14.6% health pool increase, right? And this will also begin to mark our first ever 2 million effective HP for our single target. So version 1.4, you can kind of see is where things start to get locked in. The enemy units are starting to lock in, because before this, it was still relatively contained, single-digit growths. This one, it went up by a lot, but it also had 2 considerable nerfs. So generally still quite contained. Ever since version 1.4, that's when, because Jingliu was such an absolute goddamn powerhouse back then, they had to do something to kind of, make it a little bit more balanced, especially for a unit that introduced that strong, right? So that was going to be that. The unit HP, when I take a look in the comparison, you can see that going from Yanqing at a 409,000 HP, True Swarm was also our first ever double HP boss. This was the first time that players faced a boss that had 2 different little red dots at the top, almost like fighting a simulated universe boss. So going from 490,000 to 390,000 times 2, our first ever almost 700,000 HP boss. Luckily for us, True Swarm was actually not that difficult of a problem, because the bugs, whenever you kill them, they gave us this vulnerability debuff that considerably increased our damage output. So frankly speaking, True Swarm, and also if you manage to kill all the bugs, he doesn't really pose that much of a threat, because his damage is not that high, especially if you're somebody that pulled for Fusion, right? So that was gonna be that, and now moving on to version 1.5. Now, keep in mind, version 1.4, it was going to be our last time where the criteria for a 3-star clear is at 14 cycles. From 1.0 to 1.2, it was at 20 cycles, then it became 16, 14, 1.5 onwards was where we reached the Memory of Chaos as we know today, where you need to clear a stage in 10 cycles in order to get a 3-star clear. So 1.5 is quote-unquote the actual finalization of the number of turns required to clear a 3-star stage. right before 1.6, where we got introduced to Memory of Chaos 12. And if you guys still don't know what came out for 1.6, I'll let you guys cook a little bit. But essentially 1.5, this was also a very, very considerable increase, going from 24% increase in single target effective HP and a 17% increase in AoE effective HP, going from 2 million effective to 2.6 million within a single version, right? AoE also went up by roughly 270,000 from 1.4 to 1.5, right? So this was essentially the introduction of another True Swarm, except that True Swarm got buffed 200,000 more HP. And we also see the introduction of Japart with this about a bitch over here, right? 1.5 was the introduction of Argenti and Hue Hue. Frankly speaking, I don't know why they made it so much more difficult for my man Argenti. Like, what did bro do to deserve a 24% increase in effect? Oh wait, even AoE is like, it is a considerable increase. And we don't even have 4 target enemies. Argenti versus Argenti. 1.5 also did see 2 separate phases for 2 separate Memory of Chaos within a single patch, because this was before they introduced the Pure Fiction stage. I believe they started introducing Pure Fiction in 1.5, right, for Argenti. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's around the time where we got introduced to more endgame content, right? So version 1 is gonna be a 24.86 with a 17% increase for single and AoE. And then version 2, we saw a pretty nice dip for -9% single and -10% AoE. Almost as if it was the calm before the storm. Version 1.6, highlighted in red, by the way. Highlighted in red. Enigma in Deep Space. Our first ever 50% damage increase, or rather 50% increase in effective HP for both single target and AoE target. What the fuck came out in version 1.6? If you know, you know. The Honored One, Ranmei, has entered the battlefield. This was the release of the support that changed everything. With Respan, Weakness, Break Efficiency, Team-wide Damage Buff, Team-wide Respan, our Break Effect, that even the Signature Icon giving us 10 energy. This was the first ever Memory of Chaos that saw a more than 50% increase in effective HP for both single and AoE target. So the bosses we've had, this True Swarm thing, within 2 patches, it went from 390,000 HP to 580,000 HP in 2 patches. Bro's health literally doubled. Almost doubled in 2 different patches. If you want to compare your Kafka, this was also going to be going up from back in the days. She was at where the fuck was the last Kafka? Oh, that was really long ago. 300,000 Kafka to now a 648,000 Kafka. Even the Sanctus Medicus Shapeshifter, he also went up quite considerably, going from a... Where was bro again? Okay, never mind. This is the first time. Okay, but anyways, essentially, version 1.6 saw a tremendous increase in effective HP for everyone and their moms. It was the stage that you could say had a little bit of a... Almost like if you didn't pull for Ranmei, you really had to compensate quite hard, either via a sustainless clear, or if you're doing a sustained clear, your clear cycle probably went down. Not saying it's impossible. I think at this point, I don't think there was a player feedback where HP inflation was an issue, because I think players were still clearing this with 3 stars. It was the introduction of MOC 12. Fuck Ranmei, nobody cares about Ranmei. It was because of MOC 12 that the stages rised up by 50%. Very good, very nice. I think if I'm not wrong, there was also a couple of... I don't know if we had a discussion with other content creators or like the community, where I think it was the first time where like, should they even add MOC 12? Because I think players might be like, oh my god, MOC 12, free-to-plays can't clear MOC 12. Therefore, this is a pay-to-win game when they added MOC 12, because it is a very, very considerable increase in overall HP if you want to compare MOC 10 to MOC 12. It was technically optional because you're basically missing out, what, 2 stages worth of whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, introduction of MOC 12. I think some people were not too happy. Most people were quite okay, and I think almost everyone pulled for Run Mei, which is why Run Mei is still one of, if not the highest holding rate in the entirety of Honkai Starbucks. And then version 2, I think this aligned with Ratio, if I'm not wrong. No, I think Ratio already came out here. I remember using Ratio against this guy. I feel like Ratio already came out, if I'm not wrong. Oh, was it this guy? Nah, I feel like Ratio is already out. Yeah, I feel like there was a part where we had Ratio, and then this version 2 came out with the Airborne Deer. So, free Ratio. Somehow, the second version 2 actually nerfed the Memory of Chaos 12 HP by 10% and 16% respectively. This might be a devs listen moment. Maybe there was quite a lot of community feedback that Memory of Chaos 12 was way too difficult, so they nerfed it by a pretty decent amount from 360k to, or rather 3.6 million to 3.2 million, and this went from 2.5 million to 2.1 million. And at this point, for 1.6 V2, I kind of want to bring an attention to you guys. AoE effective HP is almost always 50% lesser compared to single target HP. And that was since, I think, ever since 1.2 actually. Yeah, 1.2 onwards, it was really like your single target really had to be an extremely, extremely strong single target to make them match up with the AoE HP pool. Which I think also brought up the discussion of whether Scylla was getting power crap, whether Hunt was useless or useful, because everyone in the mounts are just using AoE, and you technically had an easier time clearing stuff because your effective HP was a lot lower compared to a single target HP, right? So that was gonna be for version 1.6. And then version 2.0. Dreamland of Longing. 18% single target, but a whopping 27% increase in AoE target. 3.8 million to 2.7 million. This was the introduction of Memory Zone meme, and as we enter into Penacony. I believe this was also the time where we got introduced to how absolutely diabolical Topaz and Ratio was against this bitch, because bro was weak to both imaginary and fire. So Topaz Ratio was performing exceptionally well, and before this guy came out, I don't think people were even remotely close to thinking about using Topaz, because there was basically not a lot of situations where Topaz could shine. Technically, I guess you could run it with Airborne Deer, but because Airborne Deer didn't have the imaginary weakness, it was not that good of a fit. I think people were still running Scylla because of the quantum weak and you can kill the trees. So this was the first time that Topaz Ratio actually shined quite a bit. Japard and Searing Prowler, I think these are not too big of concern, but Memory Zone meme, although the boss HP, it is a big boy. Ebon Deer is 3.5, Memory Zone is 7.1. It is quite literally double the HP for your Ebon Deer. What was the last time? True Storm is also almost 150,000 HP increase. To be fair though, his second phase did give our entire team the, max energy. DOT MOC, yeah, I know it's DOT MOC, but people still use Ratio Topaz. Ratio Topaz was very, very good here. Right? And I think this was also because Black Swan is 2.0, right? Yeah, Blair is not 2.0, but Ratio Topaz was I feel like this was the first time that Ratio Topaz was like super, super good. So, yeah, 2.0 right before... Tell me this is right before Akron. Tell me this is right before Akron, right? Was Akron 2.0 or 2.1? There was Sparkle. Fair was 2.5, guys. Come on. Akron was 2.1. So 2.0 was Sparkle. It was Sparkle Black Swan. Okay. So 2.0 version 2, which is the second Memory of Chaos, we also saw another increase in effective HP for single target going from 3.8 million to 4.3 million. 12% increase, and for AoE is going to be a 16% increase, and the mob is going to be none other than our favorite punching bag, Yanqing. No second health pool, 800,000 HP, and this is going to be our first ever fight against Sam. with the weakness locking mechanic. And this is a random Automatron Direwolf, right? So that is gonna be 2.0. Also it is an increase, but not too big of increase before Black Swan stage. I think it is also because this SAM stage, it worked very, very well with Imbibitor Lune. So Sparkle with Imbibitor Lune here worked exceptionally well. And technically you could run him inside one as well. So Dale mains were eating good in this specific rotation. And then came 2.1. This increase, I feel like this probably deserves a rate. This increase was not a Memory of Chaos 10 to 12 increase. Because this, as pointed out by my lovely, lovely chat, it was because we went from MOC 10 to MOC 12, so the effective HP went up by a lot. This was MOC 12 to MOC 12. On version 2.1, the effective HP for single target went from 4.3 to 5.6 million. And for the AoE HP, it went from 3.1 to 4.1 million. A 30% increase across both fronts. And this was the Aventurine release. 10 Stone Hearts, Aventurine or Stratagems. Probably one of the hardest fights up to date with his dice mechanic, and also the release of Acheron, the honored one. If you did not have Acheron here, you are probably gonna face a little bit of difficulty with Aventurine, because we did not have Robin. We did not. It was the hardest. It only had a 70% 3-star rate for free to play, according to Sarah, right? So our first ever 2 million HP boss. I don't think we had ever. Yep, this is our first ever 2 million HP boss, going from 700,000 in Memory Zone times 2, which is 1.4 million, to 2 million HP with the dice mechanics. First half, this was also the stage where we got introduced to the dinosaur that had extremely reduced damage taken unless he was weakness broken. And I think this was also a stage where a couple of Xueyi mains started to rise up. I remember distinctively using Xueyi here. She was actually not too shabby. She was not too shabby, right? Aside from that, I would say 2.1. This was a pretty considerable increase in difficulty from Memory of Chaos 12 to Memory of Chaos 12, right? And I think 2.2, they toned it down by quite a bit, going from a 22% nerf in effective HP and a 4% nerf in effective HP for AoE and single target respectively. I believe 2.2 was Bubbin. Okay, so this was the introduction of Bubbin. I think 2.2, Robin and Boot Hill. Okay, Robin and Boot Hill. So we have V1, V2. I think V1 came out with Robin first, followed by Boot Hill. So Boot Hill came out around this part. And I think he did exceptionally well against Argenti. With the introduction of Robin in the first half, I would say that players shouldn't have as much of a difficulty, since Robin was an absolutely fucking diabolical support, and the effective health went up by quite a bit. Then for V2, no change for AoE. Single target damage increased by 13%, probably to account for Boot Hill, because Boot Hill's single target damage was very, very strong. So I think they kind of want to make it a little bit more balanced. Also, our first ever puppets. A butter bitch of the butter bitch. If you are running AoE against puppets, you are chilling, right? You are more or less chilling, right? So that is gonna be that for this. And then going into 2.3, the introduction of our girlfriend, Firefly. I believe 2.3 changes nothing. Actually, completely changes nothing. Actually changes nothing. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but yeah, I guess 2.3 changes nothing. Also, introduced us to the potential of a Firefly plus Himiko angle with the Himiko Firefly run May Harmony MC. Right, that was also a very, very interesting scenario. But 2.3, I think generally it didn't really change too much. 2.4, rerun of Aventurine with the Kafka and a Dire Wolf stage. 2.4 was gonna be a diabolical increase in change because newsflash, Puppets is about a bitch and Aventurine is just a fucking G-bite, right? So AoE went up in difficulty considerably, but Aventurine's health actually didn't change. It changed a little bit. It went from 1 million to 1,880,000. It went up by 9,000. Okay, 180k for Aventurine. Not too big of a change, if I can say so myself, but the mechanics were definitely still quite annoying. Actually, if anything, the first ever Aventurine fight was the most annoying in my opinion, because I'm not sure if you guys, the buff for the first ever Aventurine fight, it was this Memory of Chaos fixed damage number that happened once every 6 hits, or like if you attacked 6 times. So if you used this Memory of Chaos buff during Aventurine's fucking die stage, it does absolutely fucking fuck all. So a lot of players had problems adjusting and remembering that you shouldn't waste the Memory of Chaos debuff on the fucking dices, right? So that was a fucking pain in the ass. You really had to know what the fuck you're doing. I think this one was definitely probably a lot more considerable compared to the very first Aventurine boss fight. So that's gonna be 2.4, and then 2.5 came out with a whopping 46% increase in single target HP. But that being said, 2.5 was also the introduction of my wife Fei Xiao, and bro was clapping cheeks. Bro was clapping cheeks. We also, I believe, had the intro of Yun Li, so we had a lot of extremely good DPS that came out from 2.4 to 2.5, right? So they really scaled up the single target damage from a 1% to a whopping 46% increase in health. And AoE roughly 18%. Okay, let's highlight this real quick. So 2.5 was also a very considerable increase. And now fast forward to here, 2.6. So I think after all the yapping, this is probably the most interesting point, because 2.6 is the one that sparked the HP inflation problem, and we have a fucking 5 million HP mob. That is the Wonder Forest Bennett Academy stuff. But somehow, it actually got nerfed in terms of effective HP for AoE. It went from an effective 5 million to a 4 million. But your effective HP was single target, it was absolutely cooked. If you were a single target main in version 2.6, you had a HP pool to clear of 10 million HP if you were a single target main. But if you were using any AoE units, Rappa, Firefly, Acheron, or whatever, then your effective HP was only at 400,000. So generally speaking, I think this was the one that leads us to this day. The health pool, the raw health pool, it went up, but the effective health pool went down. Some people will start to say, you know, if you don't pull Rappa, you just don't clear the stage. If you don't have Acheron, you just don't clear the stage. I would say don't clear is a bit harsh. You probably can still clear, but let's just say you're running Jing Liu here, Ice Week. I mean, I feel like Jing Liu is still, you know, like she can still clear. Maybe. I think you can do a relatively respectable 3-star Jing Liu clear with 2.6. Okay, as usual, I'm just gonna kind of just show you guys numbers as this. And we'll just kind of start wrapping up in summary, because like I mentioned, this is not a subjective video. I'm only here to show you guys the numbers, no opinions, and I'll leave you guys to start a war amongst yourselves in the comment section, right? So in summary, here is the chart for the Honkai Star Rail Memory of Chaos HP inflation from 1.0 to 2.6. So blue is single target, orange is AoE. And generally speaking, if you want to summarize your trends, right? Trends. If you were a single target damage dealer, you are slightly fucked, because overall the increase has been exceptionally consistent. And for the AoE side, it has been around the same, generally speaking. Alright, it was always around this ballpark where a single target it's really not looking too good. This might change the new Memory of Chaos, but we'll see how that goes. So to kind of answer the question of whether HONKAIStarrail has a HP inflation problem, like we went from 1.0 where your enemy had 300,000 HP with 1 bar, all the way to now with an enemy with 1.6 million HP. And if you want to consider the banana boss, it's 5 million HP. I think personally, instead of looking at raw numbers alone, we should also factor in a lot of other stuff, like you got new Memory of Chaos buffs, you got new supports, you got new DPS, you got better relics over time, you are watching more guides, you're getting better at the game. A lot of other stuff aside from just the raw numbers. Which kind of brings to this final question, right? The final question. Are you fucked in Honky Starbucks if you're someone that stays behind in terms of the new units? Is this going to be another Honky Impact 3 situation where if you don't pull for the latest, quote-unquote, latest meta, right? Be it Super Break, be it follow-up, be it summons in 3.0, will you be left back so far that you cannot even keep up with the bare minimum 3-star clears? I'm talking about the DOT mains. I'm talking about the Scylla mains. I'm talking about the Blade mains. I'm talking about the Jingliu mains. Would you be okay if you choose to not invest in any of the new archetypes? And going forward, how would that shape the future endgame when summon meta gets introduced? Would you still not pull for the summon DPS? Would you still not pull for Sunday? Would you still not pull for the summon supports if there's going to be summon supports? That is going to be food for thought. I'll leave it up to you. We didn't do the math for Pure Fusion and Apocalyptic Shadows because Memory of Chaos has been with us since day one, right? We went from floor 10 to, what was this? 20 cycles to get a 3-star in 1.0. And then went to 16, 14, 10 cycles 1.5, introduction of MOC 12 in 1.6, etc, etc, 300k HP to 5 million HP boss. And I think with that, I'll close up this video and let me know what you guys think in the comments below, right? The word of the day is going to be join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join Twitter, join Twitter. All the best. Welcome to the pools. I'll see you guys next time. Shit. You know, every single time I say the word of the day, people don't actually say word of the day. Nobody says word of the day. It makes me very, very sad. Like every single time I say word of the day, no one actually types the word of the day in the comment section. So like, what's the point, guys? There's no point saying word of the day because nobody watches to the end of the video anyways. The word of the day is just gonna be word of the day. Okay, you know what? Editor, add this part in. The word of the day is gonna be fucking about the G-bye, bro. Never read, don't even wanna fucking fuck you, fuck. That's gonna be the word of the day. That's gonna be the word of the day, alright? And we'll see what the fuck types that in the comment section, alright? Ain't nobody typing it because it's not a word. Okay, I will say a random word. Alright, you know what? Okay, use this. Okay, I will say an actual word and we'll see who. No one types the word of the day, okay? Here's the word: pineapple pizza.